I was once a rogue cultivator of the Hihun sect, but I somehow ended up in a world where women vastly outnumber men. The cultivation techniques I brought with me constantly attract the ladies, whether I like it or not. On my very first day at this new school, I was cornered by a gorgeous schoolflower beauty who pinned me against the wall and insisted on becoming my girlfriend. By the time I got home after school, I was utterly exhausted, only to find my beautiful shut-in stepsister waiting for me. When she spotted the hickey on my neck, jealousy consumed her. Determined to have me, she didn't hesitate to slip something into my food. Meanwhile, there's also that blonde-haired young lady who's been secretly following me around. She recently noticed I've been interacting with other women, so she had me kidnapped, tied up like a dumpling, and delivered straight to her room. Just as all this chaos swirls in my mind, I step into the elevator heading home. A woman presses herself close to me, practically clinging to my side. She looks older, probably in her mid-20s, with an attractive figure. But honestly, I'm over it. This female-dominated world is crawling with beauties, and their constant advances are starting to feel more like a curse than a blessing. Is this karma? In my past life, I used to take advantage of women without a second thought. Now, here I am, seemingly paying for those sins. As the elevator empties out, the woman moves away slightly. Was it intentional? Who knows? And frankly, I don't care anymore. The doors open, and I head toward my apartment. Susei, you're back. A voice calls out from the kitchen. It's Tong Mung Jae, my stepsister who shares no blood relation with me. My family situation is complicated. My mother is fine, but my father, well, let's just say he ran off with some bleached blonde woman. In this bizarre world where gender roles are completely reversed, and women reign supreme, I'm labeled as the son of a scumbag. That label hasn't done me any favors. At school, I get plenty of judgmental stares. Maybe that's why I tend to keep to myself these days. I nod absently and wander into the kitchen. What's for dinner? Stir-fried squid, Tong Mung Jae says with a smile. Your favorite. Her tone shifts slightly, and her eyes widen as they lock onto my neck. There's a faint pink mark there, a telltale sign of what happened earlier today. Seeing it, Tong Mung Jae's pupils contract sharply, though I don't notice. To me, the dish simmering in the pan looks delicious enough to distract me. I'll go do my homework, I say casually, brushing past her. But behind me, Tong Mung Jae's demeanor darkens. She's always harbored feelings for me, seeing me as hers even though we're not related by blood. And now, someone else has dared to lay claim to what she believes belongs to her. Early romance. Huh? She mutters under her breath, grinding her teeth. If anyone's going to be his partner, it should be me. After a moment of furious deliberation, a plan forms in her mind, one she's considered before but never acted upon. Quietly, she slips into her room and retrieves what appears to be a tea bag. But this isn't ordinary tea, it's a highly potent sleeping potion. Don't blame your sister, she whispers coldly, her eyes glinting with resolve. You brought this on yourself by chasing after other girls. Now you'll face the consequences. Meanwhile, I finish my homework quickly, feeling unusually sharp thanks to the foundational cultivation techniques I've been practicing. Still, progress feels too slow. What I really need is someone to practice dual cultivation with. Truthfully, I've thought about asking Tong Mung Jae, but knowing her, it'd likely turn into a mess. Better to avoid that headache. As fate would have it, Yang, the stunning captain of our school's basketball team, recently confessed her feelings for me after leading her team to victory in an inter-school tournament. Since she likes me, and I could use a partner anyway, I agreed. Today, during dismissal, Yang revealed just how possessive she can be. And so, caught between jealous stepsisters, obsessive admirers, and budding romances, my life in this strange world grows increasingly tangled. You could say she stole my first kiss of this life. In my past life, a man's kiss wouldn't have meant much, but in this female-dominated world, a man's first kiss holds significant weight. At dinner, something felt odd. Normally, Tong Mung Jae would chatter endlessly, but today she was uncharacteristically silent. quietly shoveling food into her mouth. I didn't think too much of it, though. Picking up a glass of juice from the side, I took a sip. When Tong Mung Jae saw this, she paused for a brief moment before resuming her meal in silence. After finishing, I got up and headed straight to my room to play on my phone. As I scrolled through apps and games, a wave of drowsiness washed over me. Outside, Tong Mung Jae loaded the dishes into the dishwasher. Then, noticing that the light in my room had been turned off, a small smile crept across her face. It's working, she thought to herself. But I should wait another hour just to be safe. She tried to calm her racing thoughts. Thinking about me made her throat dry. Taking a deep breath, she retreated to her own room, put on her headphones, and opened her laptop. She started watching movies with themes of forbidden sibling relationships, a guilty pleasure she'd indulged in countless times before. An hour passed, and her mind was a whirlpool of conflicting emotions. Would I discover what she had done? What if I rejected her? But then again, we weren't blood-related. Surely, it wasn't entirely wrong, right? With trembling hands and a heart pounding like a drum, she tiptoed toward my room. The sound of my steady breathing reassured her. I was fast asleep. Not daring to turn on the lights, she approached cautiously. Her eyes gleamed with both nervousness and desire as they landed on my pale, handsome face. Her heart raced as she slowly reached out, her fingers brushing against my lips. They were soft. I murmured in my sleep, startling her. She quickly pulled her hand back, holding her breath. But I didn't wake up. Letting out a sigh of relief, she grew bolder, gently caressing my clean-cut, striking features. By now, her cheeks were flushed red. He's probably still inexperienced, she thought to herself. But he belongs to me. Even if I'm just a shut-in who isn't highly regarded by others, I won't let him go. Thanks to the foundational cultivation techniques I'd practiced from my past life, I wasn't extraordinary yet, but I was far stronger than an ordinary person. That's why, when strange sounds stirred me awake sometime later, I immediately realized what had happened. Originally, I had planned to give myself to Yang Ye. But alas, fate, or rather, Tong Mung Jae had other plans. Considering how things worked in this gender-reversed, female-dominant society, I knew there were strict codes of conduct for men, virtues like husbandly duty or male morality. If Yang Ye ever found out about this, well, let's just say she'd lose her mind. But what's done is done. There's no use crying over spilled milk. So I silently activated the dual cultivation technique passed down from the Hehyun sect. This method wasn't exactly top tier, it was more of a crude, unrefined practice. In my past life, the most advanced dual cultivation techniques benefited both parties equally. But this one, it only benefited me. For the woman involved, it drained her vitality, leaving her physically exhausted and branded with an invisible mark. Once marked, she'd become utterly dependent on me, unable to live without me, body and soul. Half an hour later, Tong Mung Jae slipped out of the room. She spent nearly 15 minutes tidying herself up, wiping away any traces of what had transpired. Then, grabbing some wet wipes, she frantically cleaned anything that might incriminate her before rushing out of the room in a panic. Once everything fell silent, I finally opened my eyes. Taking a deep breath, I glanced down at my abdomen. There, faintly etched into my skin, was a new tattoo-like mark, a unique trace left behind by this cultivation technique. This mark not only stored energy but also enhanced attributes like agility and strength. And so, amidst the chaos of this bizarre world, my journey continued, one step closer to power, one secret deeper buried. On the other side, Tong Mung Jae had fallen into what you might call sage mode. She swallowed hard, her mind replaying every moment from earlier. Closing her eyes, she tried to calm herself with deep breaths, one after another. But no matter how hard she tried, peace eluded her. Finally, in exasperation, she resorted to taking a cold shower. That did the trick, at least enough for her to regain some semblance of composure. After drying her hair, she collapsed onto her bed, utterly drained. Darkness overtook her vision, and she slipped into unconsciousness without another thought. The next morning, I woke up feeling fantastic, better than ever. In fact, my skin was clearer and healthier, almost glowing, and if I flexed just right, faint outlines of abs showed beneath my shirt. Feeling refreshed, I decided it was time to check on Tongmung Jae. Big sis, I called out, knocking on her door. By this time, she should have been preparing breakfast. But there was no response. Clearly, the effects of last night's dual cultivation had taken their toll. She was still fast asleep. Shrugging it off, I headed out to school. To be honest, Tongmung Jae really is something else. I mused while eating my rice noodles. On one hand, she's financially independent. On the other, she's attractive, an excellent cook, and apparently has a bit of a brother complex. But honestly, I don't feel much sympathy for her. If anything, what happened between us could easily be compared to some reclusive shut-in making a move on his stepsister. The irony isn't lost on me. Susei, a voice called out as I entered the breakfast shop. Looking up, I saw Yangya sitting across from me. With her unique hairstyle, a single high ponytail paired with long flowing locks, and her crisp school uniform hugging her figure, she radiated an aura of youthful purity mixed with undeniable charm. It was painfully obvious that Yangya had no idea her beloved boyfriend had already been claimed by someone else last night, or that her metaphorical roof was now thoroughly green. Yangya blushed slightly, her cheeks tinged with a healthy pink hue. Her beautiful eyes gazed at me intently, though she remained blissfully unaware of the truth. For a moment, I wondered whether she'd eventually find out. But then again, why complicate things? Better to let the current flow naturally. We finished our breakfast together before heading to school. As we walked, more than a few heads turned our way. To them, we were the epitome of the perfect couple, the talented girl and the handsome boy. A relationship envied by all. Hug me, Yangya said suddenly, opening her arms wide. Without hesitation, I obliged. Pulling her close, the faint scent of orchids wafted into my nose as she buried her face in the crook of my neck, inhaling deeply several times before planting soft kisses along my skin. Finally, she gave me one last peck before pulling away, grinning mischievously. You smell so good, she teased playfully. Don't get too carried away, I warned lightly. If a teacher catches you, you'll regret it. Got it? She laughed cheerfully before skipping off, leaving behind a trace of her sweet fragrance. Thanks to the cultivation technique I'd mastered, my body now emitted a subtle yet irresistible scent that seemed to affect women disproportionately. Of course, this was merely a side effect. If they didn't deliberately sniff me, most people wouldn't notice anything unusual. Still, it added an odd layer of complexity to my life. Time flew by quickly. Previously, my academic performance had been average at best, but now, I found myself absorbing knowledge at an accelerated pace. In this world, where technological advancements and historical figures were predominantly female, it made sense that society leaned heavily toward matriarchy. What struck me as particularly absurd, however, was how even physical dynamics seemed reversed. Women here were naturally stronger than men. The afternoon passed swiftly, and soon enough, dismissal arrived. Just as I was about to leave, Yangya cornered me once again. This time, she kissed me fiercely, leaving me slightly breathless before finally releasing me with a satisfied grin. And so, amidst tangled relationships and hidden secrets, my days continued unfolding in this strange, upside-down world. It seemed that Yangya was holding back, believing that things were moving too quickly. After all, we had only been a couple for a few days. But what she didn't know was that someone else had already beaten her to the punch. Big sis, what's for dinner? I asked casually, dropping my backpack by the door and heading into the kitchen. Tongmung Jae tensed up slightly, clearly worried I might notice something amiss. Braised pork tonight. How's that sound? I replied offhandedly before wandering off to play on my phone. Meanwhile, Tongmung Jae's thoughts grew darker. Since she'd already crossed the line once, why stop now? Might as well go all in. Besides, yesterday had been her first time, she hadn't lasted even half an hour. Surely today would be different, surely she could last longer. In this world, women placed great importance on stamina. Typically, after 2 rounds, They were completely spent men. However, possessed an uncanny ability to endure far beyond reason. At dinner, I sipped some juice without hesitation. Thanks to practicing the cultivation technique, I had developed a resistance to the sleeping potion she'd slipped me. Ironically, it almost felt like I'd grown addicted to it. Pretending to know nothing, I shrugged internally. Fine. If she wanted to play this game, so be it. Faking sleep wasn't exactly challenging. And true to form, Tong Mung Jae crept into my room later that night with practice teas. This time, she even went further than before. I couldn't help but feel exasperated. Who knew Tong Mung Jae had such a repertoire of tricks? Clearly, she hadn't been wasting her time watching those movies. Still, I wasn't particularly bothered. The dual cultivation technique I used wasn't outright malicious. It didn't train the woman entirely, but it certainly wasn't some wholesome practice meant for longevity either. And just as I expected, Tong Mung Jae performed worse tonight than she had yesterday. She collapsed after barely 20 minutes. What? How is this possible? Her face turned pale with shock. No. 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 This couldn't be happening. But despite her frustration, Tong Mung Jae remained calm enough to clean up any traces of what had transpired. With flushed cheeks and a mix of embarrassment and lingering desire etched across her features, she quietly slipped out of the room. Only then did I open my eyes. Sitting cross-legged, I began to focus inward. Steam-like energy rising from my body as I processed the results of our session. Moments later, I finished absorbing the benefits. Feeling refreshed and invigorated, my skin was clearer, healthier, more radiant than ever. As for Tong Mung Jae, she stepped into the shower, only to feel an overwhelming wave of exhaustion crash over her once again. Damn it! She cursed under her breath, gripping her thigh tightly enough to leave a mark. The sharp pain brought fleeting clarity, but it did nothing to quell the frustration boiling inside her. This can't go on, she muttered through gritted teeth. Determined not to let this setback define her, she resolved to start training seriously from tomorrow onward. How could she have such poor stamina? At this rate, there was no way she could keep me by her side. The next morning, I headed out to grab breakfast. To be honest, I was starting to lose patience. 3 times now. 3. While Tong Mung Jae's repeated attempts had undeniably accelerated my progress in cultivation, I couldn't help but worry about her. If she kept pushing herself like this, she'd burn out soon. Then where would she be? Staring at me, tears streaming down her face, unable to do anything but regret. But then again, I was still just getting started. Today was Friday, and the weekend was fast approaching. During gym class, I sat on the sidelines, watching Yang Ye dominate the basketball court with her usual fiery energy. But as I observed her, I suddenly became aware of another pair of eyes on me. Glancing over, I saw Tang Ziyun, a girl who stood in stark contrast to both Yang Ye and Tong Mung Jae. Unlike Yang Ye's outgoing nature or Tong Mung Jae's quiet yet mature demeanor, Tang Ziyun exuded a cold, calculating aura. Her golden hair shimmered under the sunlight, and her sharp Eurasian features carried an air of quiet menace. When our gazes met, she didn't flinch or look away. Instead, her piercing eyes locked onto mine, silently daring me to hold her stare. Something told me this encounter wouldn't end here. Tang Ziyun flashed a smile, and I politely returned it. Of course, her background wasn't exactly ordinary. She hailed from a noble family. Though not among the most powerful of aristocrats, even this modest lineage was enough to place her above nearly every other student in the school. But Tang Ziyun's pride was gnawed at by one glaring fact: she was overshadowed by someone, a mere commoner named Yang Ye, a lowly commoner who excelled academically, athletically, and seemed to effortlessly outshine everyone around her. Deep down, Tang Ziyun knew that what she had access to, her education, her resources, was far beyond anything Yang Ye could dream of. She also knew that once she came into her own, her future would be boundless, and she'd have no trouble crushing Yang Ye beneath her heel. Outwardly, though, Tang Ziyun maintained a facade of camaraderie with Yang Ye, exchanging smiles and pleasantries as if they were close friends. But recently, something had changed. Yang Ye had claimed you, a boy with striking good looks, an enviable physique, and solid academic performance. Quiet and reserved. You didn't stand out in obvious ways. But somehow, you radiated an aura of quiet confidence that drew attention. What no one realized, not even Yangya, was that Tang Ziyun had set her sights on you over a year ago. Back then, unsure how to approach you, she had contented herself with watching you from afar. And now, just as she had finally mustered the courage to make a move, you had slipped through her fingers and into Yang Ya's arms. The jealousy burning within Tang Ziyun grew hotter with each passing moment. Meanwhile, Yang Ya remained blissfully unaware, lost in the haze of newfound love. After finishing her game of basketball, sweat glistened on her skin under the sunlight, making her look every bit the radiant beauty she was. I nodded inwardly, acknowledging her appeal. Still, sports like this held little interest for me now. The cultivation technique I'd used twice already had begun to leave its mark, not just the faint tattoo etched onto my skin, but the subtle enhancements rippling through my body. Physically, mentally, I was leagues apart from the average guy now. Perhaps that explained why more people seemed to glance my way these days. Or maybe it was simply because I looked sharper after practicing the technique. Either way, I noticed the increased attention, including lingering glances from some of the female teachers. Susei, how was my performance? Yang Yu approached me, hands on her hips, clearly pleased with herself. It was all right, I replied nonchalantly. He. Let's grab some bubble tea after school, she chirped enthusiastically, completely unfazed by my lukewarm response. Time passed quickly, and soon enough, dismissal arrived. But instead of meeting Yang Yu outside, I found myself face to face with another girl, Tang Ziyun. The golden-haired beauty stood before me, her presence both unexpected and slightly unsettling. Yang Ya's waiting for you, I'll take you to her, she said, her lie clumsy and unconvincing. Having been a seasoned observer of human nature in my past life, I saw right through her ploy instantly. Still, I played along. It wasn't as though I couldn't handle a few confrontations, even in my current fledgling state. She led me to an abandoned building on campus, one long since decommissioned and left unused. As soon as we stepped inside, Tang Ziyun closed the door firmly behind us. What do you think you're doing? I asked, maintaining a calm demeanor despite the situation. Susei, you really are naive, aren't you? Her eyes blazed with audacity and determination. From this moment on, you belong to me. Tang Ziyun strode toward me with an air of absolute certainty, as though the idea of resistance never crossed her mind. Watching her approach, I felt a surge of internal commentary bubbling up. But outwardly, I feigned panic. As she advanced, I retreated step by step until my back hit the wall, leaving me nowhere else to go. In an instant, Tang Ziyun pinned me against the wall, crowding into my space with unwavering confidence. I struggled briefly, pretending to resist. But what caught me off guard wasn't her strength, it was the intensity of her resolve. Tang Ziyun's strength was far greater than I had anticipated. Someone of your status must have no shortage of men, right? I said, trying to reason with her as she greedily inhaled the scent of my neck. That's true. I don't lack suitors, she replied smugly. But not just anyone can catch my eye. I've had my sights set on you for a long time. You're always so cold and distant. Does it stem from those years in elementary and middle school, when other students called you the son of a scumbag? Did it make you feel inferior? Her words dripped with malicious amusement. To be honest, that jab hit harder than I cared to admit. If I hadn't regained memories of my past life, this would have been one of the most painful scars to confront. Even now, hearing her rip open old wounds made me clench my teeth in anger. I turned my head away, refusing to meet her gaze. But this only seemed to excite her further. To put it bluntly, this girl really had some twisted tendencies. In my mind, I translated her behavior into terms from my previous life. She was exactly the type of spoiled brat from a wealthy family who thrived on manipulation and control. You're hurting me, I muttered through gritted teeth, wincing as her grip left red marks on my wrists. I had underestimated her, and myself. At first, I thought I could handle this situation easily. But now I genuinely felt cornered. Like there was no escape. It wasn't long before Tang Ziyun got what she wanted. He. How far have you gone with Yang Ye? She taunted. Her voice laced with mockery. I didn't respond. Instead, I closed my eyes and silently activated the cultivation technique within me. Don't blame me, she sneered. You brought this on yourself by resisting. Before I could react, she slapped me across the face, a sharp sting that caught me off guard. Fury ignited inside me, along with a growing desire for revenge. At first, I had considered giving her some semblance of dignity. But now? Forget it. No, I whispered haltingly, forcing a quiver into my voice. You're my first. My tone carried hints of despair, feigning weakness, helplessness, and vulnerability. Ha ha ha. Tang Ziyun erupted into gleeful, almost deranged laughter. Though her status might technically pale in comparison to someone like Yang Ye, her jealousy burned fiercely. What better way to spite her rival than by stealing the man Yang Ye held dear? But then, in the next moment, Tang Ziyun suddenly gasped, her expression freezing in shock. What? How is this possible? 3 strikes later, and she was utterly disoriented.